Hey guys, Zomfox here, and today we're going to be talking about something that came out about a couple days ago, and that is a huge rule change from the USFL and XFL. This is changing the end zone fumble rule. This is a controversial rule that has existed throughout the history of pro football, but some people are not a fan of it. So we're going to quickly look at the Sports Illustrated article about it before I go into more in-depth about my thoughts on it. XFL, USFL to dump controversial NFL rule per report. This is by Patrick Andres. This is, as said, February 15th, so 2 days ago. So, one of football's most unpopular rules appears to be on its way out the door this spring's USFL and XFL seasons. The USFL and XFL has revised their rules to eliminate the provision by which a forward fumble out of the end zone automatically results in a possession for the other team, according to a Tuesday report from the officiating website Football Zebras. According to the report, a forward fumble out of the end zone in a USFL or XFL game will reportedly result in no chains of possession and the ball reverting back to the spot of the fumble, a complete break with the rule in force in professional game for 100 years. Yes, this is a pretty big deal having something like this happen. Now, additionally, if the ball is touched by any player who is also touching the end line, the ball will return to the fumbling team, according to the Zebras report. The innovation of the rule in the NFL is relatively rare, or of the rule in the NFL is rare, but it has popped up in critical junctures to widespread disapproval. For instance, the Browns had a potentially critical touchdown taken off the board in a 2020 divisional playoff game against the Chiefs when wide receiver Rashard Higgins fumbled the ball forward out of the end zone. That's the famous Chad Henne game where Chad Henne had the 3rd and 9 run to essentially win the game for the Chiefs. So, yes, this rule is a big deal. So, to put it simply, there are 3 instances that I want to bring up, 2 of which are this rule are actually happening, and one of them is just simply put, is the other side. So the first instance of this that I want to actually talk about is one of the most famous plays in NFL history. This is the Leon Lett fumble in a Super Bowl. This is the second Super Bowl, I believe, between the Bills and the Cowboys. And it's a famous play. It was a blowout, so, some people are going to say it didn't really matter. But the point is at the end of the game, what essentially happened is that Leon Lett picked up a fumble and was running down to score a touchdown, but he slowed down at the end, and then, as you can see, Don Beebe swatted the ball out and went out of the end zone. This naturally went as a ball towards the Bills because of how the fumbles rolled, because of the fact that he fumbled it out of bounds for a touchback. It went to the Bills at the 20 naturally. Then you have another instance in football that happened very recently as well, and you have the Rashard Higgins play that was mentioned in the article, where the Browns are driving in late in the second quarter and pass thrown to Rashard Higgins. He clearly catches it, but he fumbles it out of bounds, and the Chiefs end up getting the ball. They would end up going to score a field goal on this drive, and the Chiefs ended up, essentially, if you were to say nothing else changes the rest of the game, so I know it's always, the butterfly effect, but essentially instead of a 19-3 game heading into halftime, it would have been more like a 10-16 game, 10 for the Browns, 16 for the Chiefs. So the Browns could have actually won this game and gone to a title game if this play didn't happen. So those are the 2 instances of the touchback rule giving the ball to the other team on essentially guaranteed touchdowns, because that's really the only time it happens. Now, here's where I agree with the rule change versus other people. This is the Bills-Texans game in the playoffs a few years ago. This is the famous Josh Allen insane lateral play, where for seemingly no reason, he decides to just do this insane lateral, which is just, oh my goodness. It was such a whack play. He was basically, as you can see, he's getting sacked, and he decides to actually lateral the ball in the vicinity of Dawson Knox, who ends up knocking the ball out of bounds smartly backwards. So what this essentially did is, because of how it worked, the ball went back to where it was actually fumbled from. This is how it is for basically every single fumble. If the ball is fumbled and it's going forward, it goes to wherever the ball was originally fumbled from, normal. But for whatever reason, the rule has always been that if it goes out in the end zone, it reverts in a touchback and gives the ball to the other team. This rule really doesn't make any sense when you actually look at it objectively with that sort of mindset. It goes against every other fumble in the game. Why is it that a fumble that goes out of bounds at any other part of the field, because a field is 120 yards with 100 in between, so 100 of the 120 yards, if it goes out of bounds, it goes to the team that fumbled the ball. But for those specific 20 yards, 10 on each side, it goes to the other team and basically eliminates you from scoring. It's insane. And I think that overall this is a good change. I know some people are going to complain, say, oh, it's been a rule for 100 years. Let's be real. If you actually use that as your defense, you have no real defense. But the fact is, this is one of those rules that I feel like, honestly, the NFL might have asked both these leagues to try this. I think people forget that both these leagues do have actual ties to the NFL. The XFL from their alumni academy is the main one versus the USFL with their refs program. So they're both actually intertwined with the NFL in some regards. Part of me feels like both these leagues are doing this because the NFL asked them to secretly. Now, I don't know for sure if that's true or not, but both leagues do have a very similar rule set. There's like maybe one or two rules that are different. That's just my opinions. I think that maybe someone in the NFL is asking them to try it out, see if it does happen, and if it really is a big deal or something. Or it might just be a way to get essentially a test mode to just have it become more in the public's knowledge, and then they change it in the NFL. I don't know. But overall, I am fully happy with this change. I agree with it wholeheartedly. I think that's insane that this rule is in effect, because it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it essentially completely screws over your own team, the team that fumbles. You're basically losing 7 points, because this only happens when you're about to go into the end zone. It completely eliminates you being able to reach for the end zone because you're scared you're going to fumble it, and then you end up losing the ball, rather than scoring 7 points, or 6 points plus the extra points, stuff like that. So I'm all for this change. I think this is a solid change. The only thing is that recovering the ball for the defense when it goes into the end zone is going to be a bit wonky. But I think that's a price that's fair to be paid when just making the game fair, as I think consistency is always a big deal. And this keeps it consistent with literally the entire other rules of the fumble across the other 100 yards out of the 120. So I agree with this. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are in the comments down below. This has been ZomFox. If you enjoy this content, when we notify as soon as I upload any videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. And as always, have a great night.